Rochester, the male lead in Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, is traditionally viewed as a Byronic hero, in the same way Heathcliff is viewed in Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte as a Byronic hero. Well, it turns out that in Jane Eyre, Rochester certainly features some of the qualities of a traditional Byronic hero, but ultimately uh, proves to be quite non Byronic as a hero. So we could argue that he is an ironic Byronic hero. That's a mouthful to say. Whereas Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights remains Byronic throughout the novel. Now, what do I mean when I say Byronic hero? By now, it's a cliche, a cultural cliche, a critical cliche to call someone a Byronic hero. The idea has been around for a long time, and Hollywood cinema is driven by the idea that male protagonists uh, often work best when they are Byronic. So, Byronic hero, of course, issues from the great Lord Byron himself, the famous early 19th century British poet who, in poems like Childe Harold Pilgrimage's Child's Harold, sorry, in poems like Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, that's also a mouthful, in poems like Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, in poems like Cain, poems like The Giaour, and closet dramas like Manfred, he features a protagonist that lives by a discrete handful of qualities. What are these qualities? Well, I've listed them. The Byronic hero is first and foremost intelligence. Has a very active mind, an admirable level of smartness. The Byronic hero is passionate. He feels very deeply. And ultimately, even though he is intelligent and capable of great rational pyrotechnics, he values feeling, passion, much more so than he does reason or intelligence. The Byronic hero is often rebellious. He's a nonconformist. He doesn't follow the rules that other people tend to follow. He often drinks too much. He often drugs too much. He certainly has sex a lot. Totally concerned by the sexual mores of his time. Uh, the Byronic hero also tends to be melancholy. There's a darkness to him, a brooding quality, as if something is not quite right in the world. He often sees himself as an outcast, someone who is misunderstood by mainstream society. This melancholy is often tied with violence, even if the Byronic hero is not physically violent, though he sometimes is, he is certainly emotionally violent and sometimes cruel. Uh, Connected with this violence is arrogance. He knows that he is more intelligent than most. The Byronic hero does, and he is not afraid to express it. He has a very high sense of himself, even though, again, he often feels melancholy. The Byronic hero is often sexually virile. This ties in with his rebelliousness, but he often has a sexual power that more conventional males do not possess. He is sort of like the bad boy. He has a sort of a Count Dracula vibe, if you will. Um, but a primary quality, perhaps the most important quality for our purposes in thinking about Rochester, is that the Byronic hero is hiding some deep secret, a flaw, a sin, and he is often ridden by guilt. Now, Lord Byron himself had many of these qualities. If he didn't have them, he certainly pretended to have them. He was darkly good looking, had dark features. This is often a quality of the handsomeness of the Byronic figure. With his brooding, melancholy mood, often he has kind of dark features that lent him a handsomeness. So Byron had that. Byron was also a notorious lover of men and women. His sexual excesses are legendary. Uh, Byron was arrogant. Byron was capable of great cruelty. Byron was often suicidally melancholy. I could go on. But also, Byron harbored what was a scandalous secret. It appears that he had an incestuous relationship with his half sister, Augusta. And it was the scandal attendant upon this incestuous relationship that led him to flee England in 1816 and never come back. So this Byronic model, well, it made Byron very famous. Women camped outside of his apartments in London. It was like he was the first rock star, the first true celebrity. He might as well have been like the Beatles or Elvis Presley or Jim Morrison. He had that kind of power. Women were drawn to him. Young men were drawn to him too. They dressed like him. They wanted to be him. One of his many lovers said he was mad, bad, and dangerous to know. Well, this bad boy image made him lots of money and made him greatly popular. He was a best-selling author. His poems sold wildly, mainly because of the salacious quality of them. So certainly it would make sense that writers in the wake of Byron would draw on these qualities in literary characters in hopes, yes, of popularity, but also these qualities can make for a powerful literary character. I mean, again, we can look to Hollywood cinema right now and see that many of our leading cinematic male heroes have these Byronic qualities. Look no further than John Wick, who is handsome yet violent, brooding yet capable of loving a dog. He is ultimately, we might say, a character of horrific violence, but yet he's somehow charming at the same time. So this kind of balance of light and dark, this balance of charm and danger, would be a shorthand for thinking about the Byronic character. We can think in this regard of Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes, if you remember those movies that came out, I guess probably in the aughts, with Jude Law as his Watson. We can think of Adam Driver's character, Kylo Ren, in the more recent Star Wars cinematic episodes. Wolverine, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, would be a classic example of a cinematic Byronic hero. So now we have a clear sense of what the Byronic hero is. Rochester clearly, overtly possesses many of these qualities. Yes, he's darkly handsome. He's not traditionally handsome. He has dark features, dark hair, dark eyebrows. He's not a poster boy. He's not traditionally good looking. He's kind of good looking in an unorthodox way. This is part of his personality that Jane finds very attractive. He is capable of, well, he's moody. Yeah, is he from minute to minute? You don't know if he's in a good mood or a bad mood. So he's very moody. He's passionate. He's obviously very intelligent. He is capable of arrogance. This combination makes him irresistibly sexy to Jane Eyre. She finds him very hot, and he's nonconformist. He's rebellious. He doesn't play by the rules that other people play by. So you could easily match him up to all the qualities of the Byronic hero. He's a card-carrying Byronic hero, and of course, he has the great secret, the flaw, the sin, for which he is quite guilty. In this case, he has a wife who is insane and imprisoned in his house, and Jane does not know this, and certainly Rochester is eaten up by this moment from his past. But it's almost as if Charlotte Bronte is parodying the Byronic hero. There's an over-the-topness, if you will, to Rochester. He's almost too predictable as a Byronic hero. And in fact, The parts of his character that are not Byronic are the parts that ultimately Jane will come to value. So in some ways, I think that Bronte is setting him up as a Byronic hero to show how ultimately limiting such an ideal of masculinity is. And in showing this, proposes other masculine ideals that are more attractive. So let's think about it. When Jane first meets Rochester, it's twilight, she's been outside walking, and she sees his dog run by, and she hears his horse, and when the horse sees Jane, it skids on ice, and Rochester falls off his horse. Ignominious, kind of embarrassing. The great Byronic hero sweeps in and falls on his ass and ends up hurting his ankle to the point where he requires Jane's assistance to get back on his horse. So in their first meeting, Rochester is vulnerable. He's kind of inept, kind of goofy. There's something kind of slapstickish about it. And Jane finds this quality in Rochester just as attractive as the more Byronic characteristics. Moreover, Rochester resorts to behaviors that a traditional Byronic character never would, such as he dresses up like a female fortune teller in order to kind of trick Jane into giving him information. This is not Byronic. This is not traditionally masculine at all. It's interesting. It's suggests a kind of a transgression of gender norms, but it's not Byronic at all. So we could say there's a this is an instance of subterfuge that is not Byronic and not very worthy, but also it suggests that there's a feminine quality to Rochester that or willingness to at least throw off traditional masculine trappings and take on more traditional female trappings. He feels comfortable with that. There's something playful about that, something that Jane also clearly finds of interest. Well, also, Jane only really finds her way to Rochester. She only really, let's say, feels ready to be with Rochester, feels ready to marry Rochester when he is not sexually virile, when he is not really virile in a traditional masculine way at all. He's lost his sight, his eyeballs, not literally, but his eyeballs do not work, and he's lost one of his hands. Clearly, this is a symbolic kind of castration, where the traditional qualities of anyone's strength, aptitude, virility aren't working. So we don't need Freud to tell us that the eyeballs and the testicles are often symbols for one another, but here I think they clearly are, whether Charlotte Bronte meant this or not in her pre-Freudian age. It is only when he is no longer Byronic in this sexually virile way that Jane finds herself ready to be with him. And finally, the fourth aspect of Rochester's character that seems patently anti-Byronic is that Jane only fully can come to him when he has atoned for his sin of ultimately desiring her to be in a bigamous relationship with him, which at the time would have made Jane an adulteress. He wanted to not trick her, but he wasn't going to tell her about his past with Bertha. So his arc becomes strangely Christian, an arc of sin, repentance, and atonement. And his reward for that atonement is Jane marrying him. So just to sum up, it seems that the Byronic qualities in Jane Eyre may be put there more for satirical than for literal reasons, and it also seems that that Rochester's anti-Byronic characteristics are ultimately what win Jane over. Now again, this is unlike Heathcliff in Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, where he is not repentant at all. He remains Heathcliff the whole time. He's like full-on Byronic hero, and from the minute we see him to the minute he dies, he sort of embodies these characteristics, and these characteristics make him a sexy, interesting character, but also a terrifying character at the same time.